Even as Cami quietly built CTT, the first ripples of its effect began to appear, though no one realized the connection at first. Small disruptions, slight changes in behavior, and unexpected outcomes started showing up around her. Friends noticed odd coincidences, rivals felt subtle shifts in their advantage, and allies began to sense that the landscape was no longer the same. Nothing was overt. It wasn't like a sudden explosion or dramatic confrontation. Instead, it was an almost imperceptible shift, like the wind quietly changing direction before a storm. Those who thought they were in control began to feel the pressure of invisible hands guiding events, but no one could pinpoint the source. This was the genius of Cami's creation. CTT operated silently, infiltrating systems, relationships, and decisions before anyone could detect the pattern. Letting her influence grow undisturbed. One of the first signs appeared in interactions that seemed casual but were laden with unintended consequences. A message sent in passing could lead someone to make a mistake. A conversation meant to be harmless triggered doubts in a rival. A suggestion or offhand remark planted seeds of change without anyone realizing its origin. Cami understood that influence doesn't need to be visible to be powerful. By creating a web of subtle triggers and small manipulations, she ensured that even those who tried to act independently would unknowingly follow paths she had prepared. It was almost like she had programmed the environment around her, allowing events to unfold in her favor without direct intervention. Observers could see the outcomes but not the pattern behind them, and this confusion played directly into her strategy. The beauty of these first ripples was how they made others underestimate her even more. Rivals assumed that the occasional slip, the odd coincidence, or the unexpected reaction was random, a flaw in their own planning, or simple luck. Friends thought they were adapting correctly, unaware that each action they took had been anticipated and subtly influenced by Cami's network. Each minor victory they believed they achieved was already accounted for in her design, part of a chain reaction that only strengthened CTT's foundation. Every interaction became a test, every response a piece of data for Cami to use. While the world remained blind to her plan, she could see clearly how the pieces were connecting, how her strategy was moving forward with minimal effort but maximum impact. Interestingly, Cami didn't need to confront anyone directly to gain control. CTT's influence worked through perception, trust, and assumptions. She created situations where people believed they were acting freely, but their actions aligned perfectly with her long-term strategy. For example, when a rival made a seemingly confident move, it played right into a scenario she had predicted weeks earlier. When an ally decided to take a side, it strengthened her position without her saying a single word. It was a game of foresight and manipulation, subtle enough that no one noticed until it was too late. Each ripple amplified the next, creating a cascade of small events that, together, reshaped the balance of power in ways that were invisible until the full picture emerged. Even the emotional landscape shifted under CTT's influence. Those around Cami felt uncertainty, doubt, and tension without knowing why. Trust wavered, alliances shifted, and decisions were made under the shadow of unseen pressure. These psychological effects were as important as the practical ones because they destabilized her opponents before the final stages of her plan could even begin. Cami had anticipated these reactions, predicting exactly how people would respond. When their confidence was shaken subtly in this way, CTT wasn't just a planet, it was a living system, one that could adapt, influence, and manipulate the environment around her while keeping her entirely insulated from exposure. By the end of this period, even casual observers started noticing patterns, though they didn't connect the dots. Something was different, something had changed, and the victory everyone celebrated was no longer as certain as it had seemed. Cami's calm demeanor, once thought to be satisfaction, now took on a new meaning. She wasn't finished. She was only beginning. The first ripples of CTT had begun to disturb the waters, and those who thought they had won were now caught in a tide that they couldn't see forming. The brilliance of Cami's strategy lay in its invisibility and inevitability. While others reacted to the surface, she controlled the underlying currents, shaping outcomes, guiding decisions, and quietly ensuring that when the time came, her ultimate revenge and influence would be unstoppable, inevitable, and completely hidden until it was too late to resist. As CTT continued to grow, its influence became undeniable, even if most people couldn't identify its source. The subtle ripples from before had begun to turn into waves, affecting decisions, relationships, and alliances across the board. Rivals who once believed they were in control started making mistakes they wouldn't normally make. Alliances shifted unexpectedly, with some people moving in directions that seemed logical to them but were, in reality, orchestrated by Cami's unseen hand. Even small moments, like a misinterpreted comment or an unexpected hesitation, started to have disproportionate effects. Cami didn't have to intervene directly. Her plan worked by shaping the environment itself. Every character's move, every reaction, and every assumption was quietly nudged into alignment with the outcome she had designed. What looked like coincidence to others was actually the precise timing of a plan that had been building. And for weeks, the emotional impact of CTT became more visible as well. People began to doubt themselves and each other. Those who had celebrated Cami's apparent victory started to feel unease. Questions that seemed minor, did I miss something, or why did that happen, began to fester. Trust eroded slowly but steadily, causing cracks in relationships that had seemed solid. Even her closest allies were unknowingly influenced, making choices that ultimately reinforced Cami's power. The genius of her strategy was that it didn't rely on confrontation or force. It relied on subtle manipulation and the predictable ways humans respond to uncertainty. By the time anyone realized what was happening, they were already trapped in the structure of CTT, and Cami was the only one fully aware of the rules of this hidden game. The consequences were not just strategic, they were psychological. Rivals, who once felt confident and secure, started overthinking, second-guessing, and hesitating at critical moments. Their indecision created openings that Cami could exploit without ever acting directly. Allies acted in ways that seemed helpful but actually advanced her plan. Even minor choices that seemed unimportant contributed to the system she had built. This was the essence of CTT, a hidden network of influence that leveraged every small action, reaction, and emotion to create a self-reinforcing cycle of control. Those caught in it believed they were acting independently, but in truth, every move played into Cami's larger design. The invisible structure of her plan made her the central axis around which all activity revolved, even if no one else could see it yet. As the tension built, small moments of shock began to appear. A rival expecting victory would falter at the worst possible time. A trusted ally would make a move that seemed out of character but fit perfectly into Cami's pattern. Even simple events, miscommunications, missed signals, or coincidental timing revealed the precision of her influence. Slowly, the pieces began to fall into place for observant viewers. Every mistake, every unexpected outcome, every seemingly random event traced back to the careful construction of CTT. The brilliance of her design was that it appeared chaotic to everyone else, while in reality, it was entirely deliberate. The illusion of randomness hid the total control she had quietly established, turning her unseen plan into a force that could no longer be ignored. By this stage, Cami's victory from earlier in Season 3 no longer mattered in the way anyone had thought. What looked like the conclusion of her story was merely a stepping stone, the foundation upon which CTT had been built. She had transformed her apparent triumph into a tool for far-reaching influence, using invisibility, patience, and strategic foresight to create a system that could manipulate outcomes without her ever showing her hand. The consequences of her actions were now becoming visible, shocking even those who believed they were in control. Every character's move, every choice, every reaction played into her plan, and the true scope of her power began to emerge. By the end of this section, the audience can see that Cami didn't just win a fight, she engineered a network of influence that would allow her to rewrite the rules, control the story, and exact a form of revenge that was complete, precise, and impossible to resist. The power of CTT was no longer hidden, it was real, devastating, and unstoppable. After weeks of subtle manipulation, quiet observation, and invisible influence, CTT reached the point where it could no longer stay hidden. The first signs of its full power were chaotic yet precise, as if the world itself had suddenly shifted to follow a script only Cami had written. Rivals who had thought themselves in control realized too late that every move they had made, every decision they believed was independent, had been anticipated and guided. Even allies were caught off guard, realizing that their helpful actions had unknowingly strengthened Cami's position. The moment of revelation wasn't marked by a dramatic confrontation or loud declaration. It was in the sudden. Cami thought she had finally won. After all the fights, the struggles, and the tense moments, it looked like she had outsmarted everyone and secured her place. But what if that win was never really the end? What if it was just the beginning of something much bigger, something no one saw coming? Season 3 of LANDMAN wasn't just about victories or losses, it was about plans hidden in plain sight, and Cami's next move would change everything. This isn't just a story about triumph, it's a story about revenge, strategy, and the quiet power of someone who seems like they've already won but is actually setting the stage for a game everyone else hasn't even noticed yet. After the final confrontation in Season 3, everyone assumed the battle was over. Cami stood there, holding the moment in her hands, smiling like she had nothing more to worry about. Friends and rivals alike whispered about how clever she had been, how perfectly she had played her cards, and how she had finally won what she had fought for all season. But there was something subtle in her eyes, something calm but calculating, that most people missed. It wasn't just relief, it was quiet determination, a sense that the real game had just begun. On the surface, she seemed to be celebrating a victory, yet beneath that smile, her mind was already moving ahead, thinking several steps forward. Cami's behavior in these scenes tells a lot about her character. She is not impulsive, she never acts without planning. Every decision she makes has a purpose. Every move is meant to set something larger into motion. This calm after the storm wasn't a moment of joy, it was a moment of preparation. Even her interactions with other characters hinted at her next steps. When she laughed or talked casually with allies, it was not the laughter of someone carefree. It was controlled, deliberate, and designed to keep everyone relaxed, unaware of what was brewing. By showing trust and openness, she masked the fact that she was observing everything, taking mental notes of reactions, weaknesses, and opportunities. What looks like victory to everyone else is, in reality, a strategic pause. This is the moment when most people would lower their guard, but Cami never does. She understood that a true win isn't just about defeating someone, it's about creating conditions where you can control the outcome in ways no one else expects. This is why the win everyone saw is misleading. Cami's creation of CTT, the plan that will shift the balance entirely, started in this very moment of perceived victory, while other characters relaxed and celebrated. She was quietly laying the foundation for something that would later shock everyone. The steps she took were small and subtle, almost invisible if you weren't paying close attention, but they were deliberate and precise. Each choice she made during her supposed celebration was part of a larger sequence of actions designed to give her long-term advantage. Fans who rewatched Season 3 noticed tiny clues, looks exchanged, offhand comments, moments of silence that reveal her deeper intentions. These small details make it clear that Cami is not the type to rest after a win. Instead, she uses the moment to build, to plan, and to prepare for the revenge that she knows will eventually be needed. The beauty of Cami's strategy is that it appears harmless at first. Her smile, her casual conversation, and her calm demeanor all suggest that she is content, that she has nothing left to fight for. But in reality, she is observing, analyzing, and constructing CTT, which is not just a planet, it is a system, a network, a way to exert influence and reshape the environment to her advantage. The calmness people misinterpret as weakness is actually the strongest kind of power because it hides intention. By letting others think they have already won or understand her, she gains an invisible edge, one that will become impossible to ignore later. Cami understands human behavior so well that she uses it against them, turning their assumptions into tools for her next move. Even her past experiences have taught her patience. Every setback, every failure, and every small victory has shaped how she approaches power and control. She knows that revenge isn't about immediate retaliation, it's about timing, precision, and psychological impact. That is why Season 3's finale is so misleading. What looks like a conclusion is actually a setup. Cami didn't just win the battle. She created the conditions to win the war in a way that nobody could foresee. And that is where CTT comes into play. This creation is the quiet, invisible force that will allow her to turn the tables completely, ensuring that when the world finally realizes her plan, it will be too late to stop her. In this first section, we see a Cami who is not just reacting, she is proactive. Every smile, every conversation, every gesture is part of a larger tapestry. The calm after the storm is deceptive. It is not relief or satisfaction. It is strategy, foresight, and preparation. Those who think they understand her are being misled by appearances. Cami's greatest strength is that she can make the world believe she has won while quietly building a future where she controls everything. That is the essence of revenge and the essence of CTT. It is subtle, invisible, and devastating. By the end of Season 3, the audience begins to sense that something much larger is in motion, something that will completely reshape every relationship, every alliance, and every conflict. The first step has been taken, and the calm after the storm is the perfect cover. The real story of Cami's power begins not in the moments everyone noticed, but in the quiet spaces between. While her rivals and allies celebrated what they thought was her victory, Cami was moving in ways almost invisible. She wasn't raising alarms or making bold declarations. Instead, she was planting seeds. Small pieces of influence that would eventually grow into something unstoppable. This is how CTT was born, not with a loud announcement or a dramatic reveal, but with a series of calculated actions that most people overlooked. Every glance, every casual comment, every minor decision was part of a hidden pattern. To the casual observer, it seemed like Cami was content with her win. To those paying close attention, it became clear that she was quietly engineering a new reality, a system designed to change the rules entirely. CTT, in its essence, is more than a plan. It's a network of strategies, connections, and psychological moves, all designed to give Cami leverage where no one expects it. She knew that winning a fight doesn't always mean winning the story. Perception shapes reality, and she was determined to control both. At first, the creation of CTT looked like harmless activity. She asked questions, listened carefully, and observed patterns. Small interactions became opportunities to gather intelligence. When someone revealed a secret, misstepped, or showed vulnerability, Cami didn't respond immediately. Instead, she stored the information, cataloged it in her mind, and waited for the right moment to use it. What seemed like coincidence, too. Everyone else was actually a carefully constructed process, a slow build toward a system that would allow her to manipulate outcomes with precision. Every component of CTT was designed to be subtle. There were no sudden moves, no dramatic confrontations. For instance, she began creating alliances that didn't seem like alliances. She smiled at rivals, asked seemingly innocent questions, and even shared minor personal details. These actions created trust, lowered defenses, and allowed her to insert herself into positions of influence that no one realized she was maneuvering for. While others believed they had control over their environment, she was quietly guiding them like a chess player moving pieces several turns ahead. shaping the board without ever touching it directly. It was patience and invisibility working together her most effective weapons. Part of Cami's brilliance was her ability to read people. She understood reactions, motives, and weaknesses almost instinctively. This skill became the foundation for CTT. By knowing who would act in predictable ways, who could be persuaded, and who would resist, she could tailor each step to maximize impact. Even small actions, like a word spoken in passing or a glance that suggested agreement, were used as building blocks. Each small interaction reinforced the structure she was quietly creating. Over time, these blocks connected, forming the framework of CTT, a hidden mechanism that, when activated, could shift power dynamics entirely. Another layer of her strategy involved timing. Cami never rushed because she knew that patience amplifies power. By letting her supposed victory settle in everyone else's mind, she created a false sense of security. People relaxed, assumed she had no more plans, and underestimated her entirely. This was the perfect environment to begin constructing CTT. It thrived in secrecy, in the cracks between what people thought they knew and what was actually happening behind the scenes. Each unnoticed move became a building block for her revenge, which was not impulsive or emotional, but precise and methodical. The creation of CTT also demonstrates Cami's understanding of consequences. She knew that raw confrontation often leads to resistance, rebellion, and exposure. Instead of acting openly, she designed a system that would manipulate events indirectly, allowing the environment to bend toward her will without revealing her. And by doing so, she maintained the illusion of passivity while actually driving the story forward. In essence, CTT is a masterclass in subtle influence, a hidden engine that could rewrite the outcomes of conflicts, control perceptions, and ultimately deliver a form of revenge that is complete, irreversible, and psychologically devastating to those who thought